What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of My Shitty Kitchen. Today, we're going to be making pasta from scratch without using a KitchenAid mixer, food processor, or any of those other fancy tools. But before we jump into that, I want to thank you guys for getting this channel to 1,000 subscribers. Anyway, let's talk about fresh pasta for a second. If you've never had it before, it's very different from the box stuff you buy off the shelf. Now, make no mistake, there's nothing wrong with the box stuff at all. In fact, sometimes box pasta is better than fresh depending on the situation. That being said, it's extremely satisfying to be able to make your own pasta. It's got a springy, meaty texture that feels awesome to eat and is the perfect vehicle for a variety of sauces. As a side note, pasta like this is almost always used in a savory context. So let's go ahead and jump into the prep. First, you'll need some flour. I tend to just go with the all-purpose stuff, but you can try a couple different kinds. Next, grab a few eggs, some olive oil, and some salt. Now, the formula for fresh pasta varies from chef to chef. Fresh pasta is pretty forgiving to make, and it's kind of hard to really mess it up. For me, I like nice round numbers and easy ratios, so I usually go with 100 grams of flour for every large egg. As a plus, this is about one serving size and will feed one person. Just add 100 grams of flour and an egg for every person you're feeding, and you're good to go. Pasta for everyone. Moving on, you're gonna need a few tools. First up, I've got a kitchen scale for measuring the flour. I highly recommend having one of these hanging around because you can use it for a ton of stuff, and it's handy for when your cooking show fails and you need to start your career as a drug dealer. Next, you need a rolling pin. Stretching that pasta out is gonna be really hard with your bare hands. This makes it 100 times easier. This tool is called a bench knife, and while you don't have to have one, it's a good idea to pick one up in the near future. They're pretty cheap, and you'll use it a ton if you do any kind of heavy-duty baking. Also, a fine mesh strainer is great for this dish because we're gonna use it to sift out our flour. Lastly, you're gonna need some pretty strong arms, bruh. Now that we've got everything together, let's get a move on. Start by measuring out the amount of flour you're using. I'm making 2 servings of this dish, so I'll be using 200 grams of flour. If you're just feeding yourself, 100 grams is fine. If you're putting it into a container first, make sure to tare or zero out the container itself on the scale so the weight of your container isn't factored in. Next, you're gonna sift out your flour. As flour sits in a pantry, sometimes the humidity can get to it and you'll get these hard little lumps in it. Before using flour for anything, it's always a really good idea to run it through a sifter first. Once you got a little flour mountain like this, sprinkle some salt on top and make a well in the center with your fingers. If you don't have any fingers and I just triggered you, I'm sorry. I'll check my privilege next time. Once you've got your well, crack your eggs into a bowl. Again, I'm using 200 grams of flour, so I need 2 eggs. Add about a tablespoon or so of olive oil and whisk all of this together. Now, at this stage, some chefs just drop the whole egg straight into the center of the well and break them up with their fingers, but I like this method better. It doesn't really matter how you do it though. Next, take your egg mixture and pour it into the center of the well. Now you've got a friggin' sweet volcano in your kitchen. How rad is that? If you're environmentally conscious and don't want to destroy this wonder of nature, walk away. You're done. However, if you came here to make pasta, there's still a bit of work to do. Take a fork or your hands and start folding the flour into the egg mixture. Keep doing this until you've got a sticky, goopy mess and it starts to take the form of something solid. Now you're really gonna want to use your hands. Work your pasta dough into a ball as best you can and start making quarter turns while folding it in on itself and kneading it every quarter turn. What we're doing here is developing a network of gluten that's going to keep your pasta from falling apart when you boil it. If you're having trouble getting this to stick together, add a little bit of olive oil, and if it's too wet, add a little bit more flour. What you're looking for here is a tough, dense ball of dough that isn't super sticky to the touch. This will take about 2 or 3 minutes of kneading. The best thing to do is just to keep kneading until you feel like you've gotten a really good workout. Once you've gotten your dough all good and kneaded, the next thing you want to do is take out some saran wrap or cling film if you're from the UK and wrap up your dough as tightly as you can. After that, we're going to let it rest. It's had a really hard day and needs to relax and develop those gluten bonds for a little bit. Now, as is the case with most things, the longer it rests, the better the finished product will be. You can leave this overnight, or if you're in a rush, you really only have to wait about 30 to 45 minutes for your dough to be usable, and this dough can be stored in the refrigerator for up to a few days. Anyway, once you've let your dough rest, it's time to go ahead and roll it out. Cut off what you're going to use, and you can save the rest for later. Flour down your rolling surface and get to work. Keep rolling the dough out until it won't stretch any farther and it doesn't rubber band back on itself. If you got one of those fancy kitchen mixers with the pasta extruder attachment, this step is easy peasy, but since we're doing it all by hand, this is going to take a bit of work. After you've rolled out your dough, loosely roll it up into a tube. Take a chef's knife or your bench knife and start cutting the dough into noodles or whatever shapes that you want to use. But that's it, you're pretty much done. Or are you? Maybe you want to actually cook this pasta. You do, set a pot of water to boil on the stove and throw in a couple pinches of salt. Let it come back up and toss in your pasta. This is the moment of truth. If your pasta falls apart, you gotta start from step 1. If it stays together, congratulations. Now, what we're looking for here is just to cook the flour taste out of the pasta. You won't need to cook this nearly as long as box pasta, so just make sure the texture is springy, it doesn't taste like flour, and you're good to go. To make a simple sauce with your pasta, melt some butter over medium-high heat in a sauté pan, and if you've got garlic, shallots, or any other aromatics, you can sweat those in the butter. Next, drop in your pasta and keep it moving. We're going to throw in some of the water we cooked the pasta in because it's extremely starchy and it'll emulsify with the butter to make a nice little sauce base. Lastly, we're going to finish this with some Parmesan cheese and fresh cracked pepper, and you've got yourself a nice little Alfredo sauce. Plate it up and garnish it with some fresh herbs, more cheese if you want, and bam, you got yourself a nice, simple little pasta dish. Enjoy. But that is going to be all for today, guys. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comments, and if you make this dish or any others that you're really proud of, don't forget to send me pics on Twitter at MyShittyKitchen. I love seeing you guys explore food. Until next time, though, I'll see you guys in the next video, and as always, thank you so much for watching.